Hey guys, Thanksgiving is right around the corner and it is time to think about giving back. And so in today's episode, we have a special guest where we're going to share some insights about corporate giving and volunteering. And hopefully you'll pick up a couple of takeaways to get back into your organization. This is the One Step Better podcast. Helping small businesses make wins each and every week. Our guest today is Walker Morrow with iSolved Giving and Volunteering. And Walker is here to talk to us a little bit about corporate, I'll say philanthropy, giving and volunteering, getting your workforce involved, engagement, all that type of fun stuff. So Walker, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So Walker, tell everybody kind of a little bit about yourself, how you got to where you are today, and what you're doing with giving and volunteering.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm the product owner of Giving and Volunteering at iSolved, and I founded a company called Giveful about 7 years ago, and last year, back in 21, iSolved acquired Giveful, and so now our product is called Giving and Volunteering. So the whole idea of Giveful was really born out of a personal experience. It's just to me, it seemed like 7 years ago that there's a lot of friction of when you want to give back. 7 years ago, a lot of nonprofits didn't even have online donation capability. So it's just really kind of painful to track your volunteering hours and make donations. So the idea in the very beginning was, how could we make it really super easy for people to be able to create an account, save your payment preferences, and then within your private account, search for any nonprofit and make a donation, which means it makes tracking the volunteering hours easier, tracking your donations, your tax receipt, all that's automated. And what we learned early on was we added a lot of value to people and to nonprofits. We helped nonprofits really connect with new donors, but we learned early on through a pilot that where we could maximize our value was actually for employers. And so we had a couple employers reach out to us saying, hey, we love the technology you guys have built. Can you offer this for our employees? And so that really kind of started our journey, which, in the very beginning, we never thought we would actually work directly with employers, but we were very fortunate to work with some early employers, and that's how we got our start.
So whenever you got started with Giveful, what was the direction? If you weren't going to work with employers, what was your kind of go-to-market strategy for that?
Well, it's the very early days, and we had this idea, and like most startups, you think you have a good idea, but you really don't know until you get it out in the market and you have people start using it, and then you learn very quickly: do people see value in it? Do they not? Or somewhere in between? Usually, it's somewhere in between. And our very early, we just had a pain point. As I talked to other people, immediately people connected with the same pain that I was kind of experiencing with wanting to give back. 'Cause I think people are made. Part of our DNA is to help others and to give back. I think that's what makes us human, right? And a lot of people don't give back as much as they want to because we're all busy. We have a lot of things going on, and it's a little hard. And if it's not easy, then people don't actually participate in giving back. And so the early days, we knew that we were kind of on something. Everybody we talked to, they connected, and they loved the technology we built. So we didn't really know exactly how we were going to move forward. We were just going to let the kind of market tell us. So we were very open. And so as we started having employers ask us to use the technology for their employees, we started digging into why. And really what we learned early on was uh, corporations or employers, they really want to have that culture of generosity because they knew that um, helping their employees kind of connect with their own personal passions makes better employees. And we see that even today. There's a lot of data out there that supports the fact that if employees are able to connect in with their personal passions, they bring their best self to the workplace, and that's great for everybody.
Have you seen I'll say a generational difference in the idea of maybe philanthropy in the workplace between maybe a baby boomer versus a millennial? it seems like this is talked about a lot more now than it was, 15, 20 years ago.
100%. I think you're spot on. So we definitely see the younger workforce is more eager. They're more vocal to their employer about wanting these types of opportunities to give back locally to their community, more so than what we see with people that are later in their career. And as we were getting started 7 years ago, I mean, that's really a lot of the data that we were researching and is trying to understand. Back then, everybody, all the data suggested that in 2020, half the workforce would be, millennials, and so we really started digging in and really started seeing that, hey, we really believe back then, we really believe that this is going to become a really important topic that employers are going to want to have to address. And we've seen that play out over the last couple of years. But we definitely see the younger workforce is they're absolutely are more vocal about wanting to participate.
So I want to make sure that we set the stage on what giving and volunteering really is. So
Yeah.
this is a product that is
Hmm.
in a lot of ways native to payroll and in HR. Your already existing systems from an HR and payroll standpoint that allows your employees to choose any nonprofit that's registered with the
Hmm.
IRS and actually donate money directly through payroll deductions that are it's completely seamlessly automated and you get your tax statements back. But it does more than that. Talk to me a little bit about the volunteering side of it. How do you use giving and volunteering for, I don't know, maybe organizing company outings or events? What does that look like?
Yeah, so everything you said about the giving aspect, you're spot on. We can unpack that later on if you want to. But to answer your question regarding the volunteering, so I was very fortunate. Early in my career, I worked for an employer, and we had a volunteering program. And I raised my hand saying, "Hey, I would like to participate. In fact, I would like to lead our volunteering efforts." So I had an opportunity where I was responsible as a culture ambassador for about 400 employees. And part of my role, and this was on top of my regular job, but part of my role was I would lead and organize volunteering events. And it was very challenging. We would have to go out and source the volunteering, find the opportunities, and then I would have to come into the company and email people to invite them to want to sign up and then track who's signing up on Excel spreadsheets, track the hours, and I would have to submit the hours to HR because we had a PTO policy for volunteering hours, and I would track T-shirt sizes so everyone would show up wearing the same T-shirt. All that was done manually, and it was so difficult. And I'm so thankful for that opportunity because fast forward a few years later, here we are working on Giftle in the very beginning stages, and we're working now with employers. I'm like, hey, I know exactly what the frustrations are for volunteering opportunities. And some of our early clients were saying, hey, we want to do volunteering for this product. I'm like, perfect, because I had the firsthand experience. And so what that means today is employers can, a lot of companies, right, are hosting volunteering events for their employees. So they can now automate a lot of those steps that today are typically are manual based processes. So you can create a volunteering event, and now within giving and volunteering within the product, employees can learn about the event. They can sign up for it. So now we're automating the tracking of the hours. Employees after the event's over, they can even write a review and rate their experience. So that information can be used by the employer for future planning opportunities for future volunteering events. But we automate the communication aspect of it. So now an employer can have templates, send out emails, and schedule emails to go out to invite people to sign up for the volunteering event. So we really automated a lot of the processes. And so what that means for employers, if you're interested in having your employees volunteer, we make it uber easy to be able to coordinate and manage a volunteering event.
Walker, one of the things I've found interesting as I've looked and learned about the product, other than being able to track those hours and also, of course, give through the platform and have, one deduction, one place for all of that. As a small business, we think about corporate philanthropy and corporate giving really for large businesses, right? Like my husband's at FedEx. Obviously, there's a chairperson at FedEx that is managing this. He's getting invites every month for volunteering, which is amazing. But when you think about the small business who is 30, 50 employees and wants to do this type of work, how can giving and volunteering, or really the idea of corporate philanthropy, be like built into a smaller business so that you're accomplishing the same thing, so that your employees feel engaged, they feel excited about the places that you're volunteering? I found some of the insights that you had about setting up philanthropy in the organization, pulling out the employees to see what they should be doing. I found that engaging. So could you speak a little bit to that small business that wants to start something like this? Where do you start?
Yeah, so that's a great question. When we started, the first couple employers that I referenced earlier, they were small businesses, and as we did research and to ensure, like, is this really what we want to become? Is this really the direction that we want to head? We did a lot of research, and just exactly as you mentioned, corporate giving and volunteering programs have been around for many decades with large enterprise corporations. But when we looked at the market of what solutions are available for small and medium-sized businesses, there was zero. There was no technology that was designed. So we started, fortunately, with our customer in mind, small and medium-sized businesses. And so what that means is we had to develop the technology where it's automated, it's easy to implement, right? Because small and medium-sized businesses, they don't have the resources as a FedEx or these large enterprises where people can, all they do is their job is to manage the technology or manage the program. A lot of times, like I referenced earlier in my example, when I was a cultural ambassador, that was on top of my additional job. I just did it because I was passionate about leading volunteering events. And so we designed the technology where it's easy, it's plug and play, it's easy to use. We have clients that have 10, 15 employees that are using our technology, giving and volunteering. We have, executive admin or office manager that's the key person that's kind of managing the technology. So it has to be really easy to be able to use. And we also have clients that have several thousand employees that are using it as well. But the one thing that I'm really proud of is we designed it in a way where as people gain access to it and it's intuitive, they know how to use it. And so we've never performed employee training on how to use the technology because today it's 22, right? So I mean, you have to have technology that people can get their hands on and they just know how to use it to what they want to accomplish. And so I think we've been very blessed and fortunate that we've designed a great technology that's widely used by employees.
So when it comes to rolling this any program out, not necessarily your application, but just the philosophy of what we want to be a more charitable organization.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you start to go with that? Is it just, hey, you know what, anybody that we're going to give money to, we're going to do it through this specific program, or do you have more of a general overview of why we're doing this? How would you roll that out?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is it has to be authentic, right? And so if it's not authentic, if it's not coming from the leadership, because the leadership team within the employer, they believe in giving back. I would say that's like the number one item, right? And then how employers start from there. It really just depends on the culture of the company. Um, we have a lot of employers that have started using giving and volunteering. They had a grassroots kind of giving back program where they would maybe give, financially or collect donations at the end of the year, or maybe do one or two volunteering events. And so we always tell our clients to start small. If you know if an employer is doing one or two volunteering events a year, start using our technology to automate that. And the feedback is it makes it a lot easier. And so what we typically see is companies that were doing one or two volunteering events a year are actually now doing 4 and 5 a year because it's so easy. It doesn't take that much time to be able to coordinate and to manage the volunteering events so they can actually do more. Um, but We do offer a survey. So Shelby, you kind of
Mhm.
referenced this before. So we have a lot of clients that say, hey, we have
Where do I
done a
start?
little bit. Yeah, where do I start? And so we have a free survey, and we're like, well, the best place is ask your employees, like, what's important to them? What are their favorite passions? And if you can organize the company giving program around the passions of your employees, we see high participation rates. People are really excited because their voice has been heard. The company said, hey, giving back is important, but it's not about what we want to do as a leadership team. We're interested in your passion so we can cater our efforts around what you're interested in. And so it's been a great way for companies to get started by doing a survey, and and that gives you really like gives the employer a foundation or a blueprint of how they should get started.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here just for a second
Mm-hmm.
and ask the big question that maybe some employers are thinking: why? Why should I do this? Why should I invest resources, my own time, maybe even my own money into
Mm-hmm.
rolling out a program like this? What's my ROI? What's the practical, how do you overcome that?
Yeah, well, I would say, well, how much do you value your top employees, right? Especially if they're part of a younger generation or early in their career. Like how much do you value those employees? So what we know is 89% of employers of all sizes offer their employees time to go volunteer. And that stat comes from a study, and it's not necessarily suggesting that 89% of employers have a time off policy for volunteering, but a lot of employers will give their employees a Friday to go volunteer. But so majority of employers are offering their employees time to go volunteer. So if you're not doing that, I would say, you should probably consider doing some sort of giving back program. But then that kind of leads us into um, a recent study that iSolved conducted with 1,000 employees. We found that 60% of the younger generation said that if their employer does not allow them the time to go give back locally to their community, that they see them leaving that employer within the next 2 years.
That's an insane
So
stat.
totally. And it really is. And so that really kind of speaks to when I said earlier that the younger generation, they're very outspoken. They really want to get engaged and support their local community. And if you don't offer that opportunity, then they're going to go find somewhere else where they can have a greater impact. And people are longing to have that sense of purpose. They want to give back. We can see all this. If you turn on the news, there's all these bad things are happening out there, right? There's the hurricanes down in Florida. There's things going overseas, but people want to feel like they want to give back. And again, I think that's part of the human DNA. People want to give back, and our younger generation, they really are wanting to do that. And if you're not going to offer it as an employer, then they're going to go somewhere where they can.
I think that's spot on. A person who is driven internally to do something for others is going to find a way to do that, regardless of if it's in the
Mm-hmm.
workplace or not. And really, what you've done is you've made the employer's job a lot easier to administer, coordinate the functions of both giving and volunteering.
Yeah.
And I think that's a great way to engage a younger population of employees, because especially in a tight labor market where any advantage that we
Yeah.
could possibly find is going to work to our favor.
Yeah.
Um, doing something like this, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, so a couple points. So, first I referenced that survey. So one of the questions that we asked in the survey is ask the employees, do you think it's important for your employer to offer opportunities to give back to the community? And I've never seen it where the majority of the employees say no. In
Yeah.
fact, it's always like 85% or higher. Employees are like, yeah, we think it's either very important or extremely important. And so we always ask employers, if you don't believe what we're saying or what data or studies, what they say, just ask your own employees what if they think it's important or not, and they'll tell you. And the second thing is going back to making it easy. So the power of Giful and merging and fully integrated with iSolved has been really awesome from my perspective, because now there's virtually zero additional work for an employer to have to do to turn on this product and then to be able to facilitate payroll deductions. We fully automated the whole process of payroll donation. So money coming out of the paycheck is fully automated. There's no additional work that's required by the employer. And even the money movement, right? Back out of the paycheck and out to the designated nonprofits that the employee, where they want their funds to go to, all that's automated. There's no additional work that's required by the employer, which, kind of going back to, in our very beginning, our target customers were small and medium-sized businesses. So we really have maximized um, the efficiency. And so it makes it really easy and compelling, I think, for employers to want to be able to engage their workforce.
This episode of One Step Better is brought to you by Works, a team of payroll and HR experts who help businesses with outsourced HR, payroll, and human capital management solutions. Works is software and service, combining awesome people with the best technology to help you and your team get one step better every day. Check out our website, works.com, to explore more employer resources. One of the things that you mentioned is trying to make this easy, and I don't know, this might be a little bit taboo to talk about, but the reality is, I think there's in most people, you mentioned that you believe that we were built to help and serve other people. I would agree with that. I think that there's a level of desire in everybody, but a lot of times our own laziness keeps us from actually engaging, right. And so the ease of use of a tool like this is super important to get right, because if it's not easy, maybe we shouldn't, but the reality is we're not going to be as involved in giving campaigns and right. volunteering opportunities than we otherwise would. And so I appreciate that you did, essentially build this product with that small and medium-sized employer in mind, yeah. because it allows companies like ours, where we have, 33 people, to be able to engage our community in a way that we find meaningful, both for the clients, and a lot of times in our world, it's the clients that we have that are nonprofits that we're helping out, but also it gives an opportunity for our employees to engage without really much thought. And so I appreciate that about the product. As you go and talk through, maybe some of your larger employers that are using a product like this, mm-hmm. how are people staffing this behind the scenes? You mentioned, maybe down market, it's a little bit, you have an office manager or somebody like that. But as you go up market to larger employers, are they having teams of people, or maybe not a whole team, but, what does that look like to administer a product like this?
Yes, it's really going to be based off of, obviously the employer and their size and the resources they have available. I can tell you that today, iSolved, we have clients that have 4,000, 5,000 employees that are using this. A lot of times what employers of that size, they will have a cultural committee or a giving back committee. It's some sort of a committee where people, they have full-time jobs. They're doing this. They're on the committee because it's a passion of theirs, and they have capabilities. And there's different levels of roles or access. Or there's a volunteer event leader access, where you can create and manage volunteer events, but you don't have access to necessary company reports and settings and that sort of thing. So we see companies that, from all sizes, have various different ways of how they're having their employees kind of manage or lead. We have a bank that has 30 locations, and they have a point person in every branch, be the local sponsor, if you will, and coordinate events and giving opportunities locally for their branch. So it's flexible, where regardless of the type of employer, their industry, the size, number of locations, it can flex, or it's flexible where it can cater to all those situations.
Do you see that the employee adoption rate changes in those larger employers versus smaller employers?
It's really about, I wouldn't say it's so much around size. that really dictates engagement or participation rates. It's more about leadership, the leadership of the employer. If it's authentic and leadership talks about it, and because it's part of the DNA of a company or it's part of the culture, then you're going to naturally see a higher participation rate. Those employers are going to attract people, good employees that value giving back, and then you're naturally going to see higher participation rates. But we've seen where we've um, worked with an employer that was not using technology, then they use giving and volunteering, and naturally they're going to have a spike in participation just because technology is easy to use.
Yeah, there's some focus
Um,
around it.
yep.
Yeah, very good. Well, Walker, I really appreciate you coming on and talk with us a little bit about your experience with Giveful, then moving over to iSolved Giving and Volunteering. It's been really good to hear from you. Any final thoughts as we wrap up?
I would just say, as we're approaching the year end, this is obviously it's a time of season of giving, and so I would just encourage everyone, just regardless of how you give back, spend some time either financially or give your time and help somebody in need, and I think that's a great thing.
Great way to land.
Absolutely. Thanks, Walker. I appreciate it, man. You have a great day. Talk to you guys later.
Thank you, Walker.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the One Step Better podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you would take some time to rate us 5 stars on your podcast player of choice and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you never miss out on another episode. Thanks and have a great day.